Annas, the high priest during the early 1st century, was a central figure in the religious and political life of ancient Jerusalem. Though he held the official title of high priest for only a short period, his influence extended far beyond his tenure. He was known for his considerable power behind the scenes and his role in key events of early Christian history, particularly in the trial of Jesus and the persecution of his followers. The story of Annas is one of political savvy, religious authority, and a legacy of power passed down through his family. Annas, also known as Ananus, was appointed high priest around AD 6 by Quirinius, the Roman governor of Syria, during a time when the Romans were consolidating their power over Judea. Annas came from a wealthy and influential family, and his appointment as high priest was likely due to both his connections and his ability to navigate the complex political landscape between the Jewish people and their Roman overlords. The high priesthood was not only a religious position, but also one of considerable political power, as the high priest served as the primary liaison between the Jewish people and the Roman authorities. The high priest was responsible for maintaining order, overseeing the temple, and ensuring that the Jews followed Roman laws. Despite his removal from office by the Roman prefect Valerius Gratus in AD 15, Annas retained significant influence over the religious and political affairs of Judea. This was largely because of his family ties. 5 of his sons, as well as his son-in-law, Caiaphas, also held the office of high priest. Annas's long-lasting influence over the priesthood was unusual, as the position was typically one of limited tenure. However, his family dominated the high priesthood for decades, creating a dynasty that effectively controlled the temple and its operations. Even after being officially deposed, Annas continued to be referred to as the high priest, out of respect for his lasting authority. Annas's role in the trial of Jesus Christ is one of his most notable appearances in the New Testament. When Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was first taken to Annas for questioning, even though Caiaphas, his son-in-law, was the official high priest at the time. This suggests that Annas, despite not holding the formal title, was still the real power behind the priesthood. Annas questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teachings, likely trying to gather evidence that would justify a death sentence. During this questioning, Jesus responded by saying, "I have spoken openly to the world. I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret." Annas, unable to find a solid accusation against Jesus, sent him bound to Caiaphas, the acting high priest, to continue the trial. Annas' involvement in the trial, however, indicates his significant influence over the proceedings. His animosity towards Jesus likely stemmed from Jesus' cleansing of the temple, which disrupted the business operations controlled by the high priestly families, including Annas's. Annas's opposition to Jesus did not end with the crucifixion. After Jesus' resurrection and ascension, the early Christian movement began to grow rapidly, led by the apostles in Jerusalem. This posed a direct challenge to the religious establishment, and Annas, along with other members of the Sanhedrin, took steps to suppress the new faith. In Acts 4, after Peter and John healed a lame man at the temple and began preaching about Jesus' resurrection, they were arrested and brought before the Sanhedrin. Annas was present at the trial, along with Caiaphas and other religious leaders. Peter boldly declared before them, "Salvation is found in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved." Despite the clear evidence of the miraculous healing and the apostles' boldness, Annas and the other leaders were unwilling to accept the truth of their message. They ordered Peter and John to stop preaching in the name of Jesus, but the apostles refused, saying, "Which is right in God's eyes, to listen to you or to him? You be the judges." Annas's role in the early persecution of Christians continued as the movement grew. In Acts 5, the apostles were arrested again for preaching about Jesus, and this time they were flogged before being released. Annas, as one of the leading figures of the Sanhedrin, was undoubtedly involved in these decisions. His determination to maintain control over religious life in Jerusalem made him one of the most powerful opponents of the early Christian movement. Annas' legacy as a high priest and political figure is complex. On the one hand, he was a skilled leader who maintained control over the Jewish religious establishment during a difficult time of Roman occupation. On the other hand, his opposition to Jesus and the early Christian movement places him in a negative light in the New Testament. Despite being officially removed from the position of high priest, Annas' influence lasted for decades through his family. His son-in-law, Caiaphas, played a pivotal role in the trial and condemnation of Jesus, while his sons and grandsons continued to hold positions of power in the temple and the Sanhedrin. Annas' family represented the entrenched religious authority that was resistant to change. Annas, the high priest, is remembered as a man who wielded considerable influence behind the scenes during one of the most important periods in Jewish and Christian history. While he did not hold the official title for long, his control over the temple, his family's dominance of the priesthood, and his involvement in the trial of Jesus solidified his place in history. Annas' story is a reminder of the power dynamics that shaped the events of the New Testament and the early church.